Yo, what's up, everybody? Why did I do the millennial pause, man? I literally stared. I watched the countdown go. I don't know. I watched the countdown go through, and here we are. So once again, I want to thank you all for watching. This is Aaron Shack Politics, and we're doing some TikToks. Um, we have a little bit to talk about today. I know last video we talked a little bit about the Zelensky Ukraine stuff, which has been, really interesting and very unprecedented. But I wanted to take a look at some stuff from last night, which, if you don't know, last night was the Oscars, and a documentary called No Other Land is a Palestinian Israeli made film. It shows the destruction of the occupied West Bank uh, and Masafariyata is the area that they focus on by Israeli soldiers. So destruction and occupation of that area by Israeli soldiers. It won the Oscar for Best Documentary. And Samuel L. Jackson and Selena Gomez handed the Oscar over to the two directors, one of which is a Israeli and one of which is a Palestinian. So yeah, it's the first Oscar to be given to Palestinians, like period. And of course, it's a scathing documentation of what is happening in the West Bank. Now, the interesting thing about this documentary, No Other Land, as you might know by watching some of my videos where we previously talked about this documentary, we've known for quite a while that it was nominated for an Oscar, but it is now an Oscar-winning movie, documentary. And what is the problem? It can't get a distributor in the US. Okay? Why? Okay? How does a movie win an Oscar yet there's no distribution in the US? Well, it's being shown at like film festivals and like little theaters, spotted all around the nation, at least in the States, are able to show the film. But if you want like wider distribution to like, movie theaters like Cinemarks and AMC or, all these different, Alamo Drafthouse, whatever, all these different places where you might go in order to watch a movie, you have to sit down with some distributors. You got to make some deals. Now, there's two problems with this, okay? One problem is that some distributors think that a documentary about what's going on in the West Bank and how Israel is treating Palestinians over there, some people think that that is not going to be a profitable documentary, that it's not going to sell a lot of tickets, and people are probably worried that people don't really go to movie theaters to watch documentaries. We go to watch like action films or, romance stuff or comic book movies or horror films. And a lot of us, let's be real, like a lot of us like to stay home and watch stuff on streaming. And also, what's the other issue? No Other Land is not available on streaming either. Not in the States. Netflix, nobody's asking, nobody's listening, nobody's making a deal, nobody's bringing it in. So that's one answer about the distribution problem. What is the other problem? AIPAC kind of owns our country. We have political action committees. We have a lot of representatives in our country that are controlled by Israel. I'm not going into any propaganda stuff. I'm not going into anything that is anti-Semitic here, but there is the fact that distribution here is not going to be easy when you are pushing against an industry where there are a lot of either Israeli or dual citizenship Israeli citizens here in the States that control distribution. So it's going to be very difficult. I don't know if it's going to happen. More people need to see this documentary and even other documentaries about what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. So it's important to see this movie. I'm sure you can probably find a way to sail the high seas and find a copy with which you won't have to offer funds for. But I don't know. At the same time, I want to support the people that made the film, right? Like, I have no problem in purchasing a physical copy, or, downloading it off a streaming site, and paying money. You can't even, if you go like Amazon and search it, like, you'll find it, but it'll be like not available to watch anywhere, not available to purchase. And I even went to like the UK Amazon site, and it was there, and I was able to like purchase it, but then it hit me with the thing at the checkout where it's like, no, you're in the US, you can't buy, stuff off the UK. So there might be other ways to get around it and do it, but like in general, most people are going to need the easiest way to access this documentary, which is either going to be streaming services or movie theaters, or to be able to go to a local store and grab the Blu-ray off the shelf, right? So that's the issue with No Other Land. It wins the Oscar for Best Documentary. They give a really good acceptance speech, and it tells you a lot. As Mehdi Hassan here says on Twitter, I'll actually flip the camera here just so you can see Twitter. Mehdi Hassan says, No Other Land, the Palestinian-made Israeli film, because it's made by both Palestinians and an Israeli, shows the destruction of the occupied West Bank's Masfa Yatta by Israeli soldiers. Just won the Oscar for Best Documentary here, which tells you everything you need to know about censorship in the US. So a lot there to learn. Let me see what else I have to show you. Israel has also said, this was as of yesterday, Israel says is stopping the entry of all goods and supplies into Gaza. Now, not only are they doing that, but they're also cutting off the water. So if you followed some of my actually, we just dropped a video today, which is about how Israel has destroyed over 80% of water and sanitation sources in Gaza. So it's already not good, right? Like, that's going to lead to disease. That's going to lead to famine, right? Because if people don't have access to clean water for drinking, for washing, bathing, all that stuff, for cooking, you're not going to have sanitary conditions. And if the services for purifying water and stuff like that, people are going to be drinking water. People have already been drinking water from the sea, which is not good for you. And, people have even tried, drinking from other sources, and that's not good either. So let's dive into this a little bit more. I have an article here from the Associated Press. It says Egypt and Qatar accuse Israel of violating humanitarian law for blocking aid into Gaza, which is actually true. It's not an accusation. It literally is a breach of humanitarian law, and they've been doing this for a very long time, but especially within the last year that we've been documenting it quite heavily. So it has stopped the entry of all food and other supplies into Gaza on Sunday and warned of additional consequences for Hamas if a fragile ceasefire isn't extended. Mediators, Egypt and Qatar, accused Israel of violating humanitarian law by using starvation as a weapon. Now, that's a war crime. It's against humanitarian law. It's against international law. This is the reason why we have things like the ICC, the UN, all this stuff is to prevent modern genocides from happening. It is to prevent these types of war crimes from happening. This is something that is called collective punishment, right? You can't punish an entire country or area or an entire civilian population for acts of what Hamas does. And what does Hamas do? They are a rebellion, right? Any occupied community or country or people are eventually going to fight back. You imprison enough of them, you torture enough of them, you starve enough of them, you wall them into a city where you control their electricity, their power, their trade. You don't let them go to the beaches. If they sail out too far to go fishing, you unalive them. there's a lot of things that are happening there, and you don't expect them to resist while you steal their land and unalive innocent men, women, and children? Come on. Okay. So once again, not defending every action that Hamas does, but they are well within their rights to have a resistance force. As America has had a resistance force before, especially if you look back at our American Revolution, it wasn't the popular thing to rebel against the crown. It never is. Doing the right thing is never easy. It's never popular, but it's always the morally correct thing to do. Okay, so moving on. Ceasefire's first phase saw a surge in humanitarian aid after months of growing hunger. Hamas accused Israel of trying to derail the next phase Sunday, hours after its first phase had ended, and called Israel's decision to cut off aid a war crime and a blatant attack on a truce that took a year of negotiations before taking hold in January. In the second phase, Hamas would release dozens of remaining hostages in return for an Israeli pullout from Gaza and a lasting ceasefire. Now, Israel doesn't want to do that. Why? Because if the war stops, Netanyahu gets investigated for his corruption charges. No more immunity, right? Like, he's safe now because he's the prime minister of Israel and he is in charge of this war, and this prolonged war is a good thing for him. Okay? So, negotiations were meant to start a month ago, but haven't begun. Israel backs a new proposal to speed up the release of hostages. So they said on Sunday the new United States proposal calls for extending the ceasefire through Ramadan, the Muslim holy month that began over the weekend, and the Jewish Passover holiday, which ends on April 20th. Under that proposal, Hamas would release half the hostages on the first day and the rest when an agreement is reached on a permanent ceasefire. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the militants currently hold 59 hostages. 35 of them are believed to be no longer unalive, right? National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes said the United States would support whatever decision Israel makes. That's how you know we're a corrupt country. We're bought and sold by Israel. We're not a good mediator. We're not an impartial negotiator. We're not on the right side of history. We're standing with the people that are committing war crimes, and therefore we are complicit. Biden was complicit. Trump is complicit. There you go. Doesn't matter who's in office. So, United States would support whatever decision Israel makes without commenting on the new proposal. Netanyahu said Israel is fully coordinated with the Trump administration, and the ceasefire would only continue as long as Hamas keeps releasing hostages, which we've been seeing hostages released on both sides, right? For every, like one or two Israeli hostage, there would be hundreds of Palestinian hostages released. And what does that mean? Well, that means that it takes hundreds of Palestinians to equate to one Israeli life. That's how they weigh it. They think that Arabs and Palestinians are animals and that they're not worthy of being equal to an Israeli. That's not democracy. It's not even, part of it is authoritarianism. It's apartheid. It's an ethno-state where only one people and one religion is allowed to be there. So, the UN and others have warned against the aid cutoff. The ceasefire has saved countless lives. The International Committee of the Red Cross said that any unraveling of the forward momentum created over the last 6 weeks risks plunging people back into despair, which is very true. UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher called Israel's decision alarming. I mean, I guess that's the weakest thing you could literally say in the face of war crimes and breaches of humanitarian law, noting that international humanitarian law makes clear that aid access must be allowed, which, they don't care. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged all parties to make every effort to prevent a return to hostilities in Gaza and called for humanitarian aid to flow back into Gaza immediately and for release of all hostages, said spokesman Stephanie Dujarric, if I said that right. 5. Non-governmental groups asked Israel's Supreme Court for an interim order barring the state from preventing aid from entering Gaza, claiming the move violates Israel's obligations under international law. These obligations cannot be conditioned on political considerations. The war has left most of Gaza's population of over 2 million people dependent on international aid. About 600 aid trucks have entered daily since the ceasefire began on January 19th, easing fears of famine raised by international experts. Residents said prices shot up as word of the closure spread. From the heavily destroyed Jabalia urban refugee camp, Faiza Nassar said that the closure would worsen dire conditions. She said, there will be famine and chaos. So the worst is not yet behind us when it comes to the issue of Gaza and the West Bank. So once again, that was an article from the Associated Press, who is apparently going to be banned from the White House press pool for some reason because they're not state-funded media. They are rather more of a centrist news organization. Now, I want to take a look at a couple different articles here, okay? I want to run something by you. So, and this is great. I have pulled this up a lot of times on YouTube videos where I've covered a lot of these posts about journalists. So we have one article from the New York Times. And it says, how Russia is using Ukrainians' hunger as a weapon of war. Residents of Mariupol, Ukraine, described how they are surviving a month-long siege of the southern port with little food and no other necessities. No roof, no food, no water. Survivors texted relatives. So once again, that is how Russia is using Ukraine's hunger as a weapon of war. So once again, that is a breach of humanitarian law, okay? Breach of international law, it's a war crime. Got it? New York Times also has another article that says, Israel halts all aid into Gaza immediately as ceasefire expires. We're burying the lead a little bit, right? Like, we just spent the first chunk of this live stream talking about how Israel is not letting more aid in. They're shutting off the water. They've already destroyed 80% of water and sanitation services in Gaza. But the way the New York Times says it, when it's about Russia, it's a weapon of war, and that starvation is being used as a weapon. But when it's Israel, it says, oh, they just halt the aid into Gaza as the ceasefire expires. Nothing to worry about, right? So the rest of the subtitle says, the move came hours after Israel had proposed a temporary extension of the truce, though one with terms that Hamas is unlikely to accept. So once again, it buries the lead, and it's nowhere to be found. So when it's about Russia, hunger is a weapon. When Israel does it, it's halting aid. It's not journalistic integrity, nowhere to be found. So that's your New York Times. Another journalist, Palestinian journalist from Deir al-Bala in Gaza. We've covered a lot of his posts and a lot of his photos and videos and stuff like that. Abubakar Abed says here that the announcement of collective punishment by blocking aid and starving an entire population is an egregious war crime. However, there are still people in the West who will justify this policy. Israel has planned to starve Gaza. The international law has died ages ago. Now, there's a tweet here from the Prime Minister of Israel from that official account, Israeli PM. It says, with the conclusion of the first stage of the hostages deal, and in light of Hamas's refusal to accept the Witkoff framework for the continuation of the talks in which Israel agreed, PM Netanyahu decided, as of this morning, entry of all goods and supplies to the Gaza Strip must be halted. So that's March 2nd. That's literally yesterday. And that's the Prime Minister tweeting about it. So crazy. But that is indeed a war crime. Now, I have another post here from a journalist. I believe her name is Heb Jamal. She notes here, do you understand what it means to say Israel is blocking all goods and supplies entering Gaza? It's not that Israel is giving any of the aid. No, it means they're closing the border so that everyone else cannot give the people of Gaza aid and the basic necessities to survive. So that's a very powerful statement, right? It's not that Israel's giving aid or allowing that to pass through. It's that other countries around the world, and obviously the UN, are trying to get aid into Gaza, and Israel is like, I don't think so. We'd like to continue the war crimes, please. And she continues to say here, a state that on a whim can dictate whether an entire people can starve or live another day is a state that needs mandatory intervention from every international body to seize control and forcibly protect a population that is clearly facing annihilation from maniacal leaders and people. I agree. I mean, what we can learn here is that Zionism is about forming one religious ethno-state. So what will that religion be? Well, it's the distorted version of Judaism, which is Zionism. Okay, so we're not being anti-Semitic here. We're not against Jews. It's not an all Jews problem. It is a Zionist problem. Okay, their ideology, it's like how there are extremist Christians or extremist Muslims. Like every religion, every person can be extremist. Anyone can be an extremist. You can have those beliefs and values, right? You can take Christianity to an extreme place where you become a white nationalist Christian and you believe that the lighter complexion is the superior race, and you come up with those type of things where you believe that, for example, as one man believed that all of Germany needed to be blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, so we're seeing the same thing with Israel. If you are not of their religion or of their people, then you're not welcome there. And it wasn't their land to begin with. They came there in 1948 and started taking land and, unaliving people and hurting people. So it's a crazy situation. And I think there's going to have to be a large amount of international pressure, right? And the U.S. is complicit, and we're owned by Israel and AIPAC, and all these groups. Our politics is totally owned by money. Look at our Republican representatives that are doing town halls. They're getting shouted at by their constituents. And now Republicans are saying we're gonna pull back on the town halls. There's too many people shouting at us, so we're just gonna back out. I appreciate that. Appreciate the likes, Carlos. So yeah, we're gonna pull back on those town halls. We don't like being shouted at while we're not doing our jobs and not listening to our constituents. Right? People are mad, right? So money talks, and money owns. They are beholden to the dollar. They are not beholden to the constituents that voted them in. They care about the war chest that gets them reelected. They care about the war chest, their paychecks as well. They care about their living more than they care about the call to public service, just to serve the people, right? And do what the people believe that we want done in this country. So there's going to have to be a large amount of international pressure on the United States, on Israel, on Germany, on Spain. Might be a couple other countries there as well. But there's going to have to be, I mean, the boycotts are already working. As we've talked about in previous videos, the Starbucks boycott has closed down a lot of Starbucks all throughout the world, and they're feeling the pain. And they even mentioned why. They said, yeah, it turns out this whole Israel boycott that everyone's so mad about us, you know, sending money to Israel and giving the IDF free cups of coffee or whatever, like, turns out that's unpopular. And it's the same with Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Coca-Cola is complicit as well. Intel had a warehouse of where they wanted to open a warehouse in Israel and make the semiconductors and the processors that they're known for making, which would be the guidance chips that would go inside the missiles that Israel uses to unalive civilians, right? And so the outcry and the boycotts of Intel actually had them close down that warehouse. And what else? Puma made, I believe, uniforms and sneakers for the Israeli soccer team. People boycotted them for 5 years, and they finally have stepped aside. And now Reebok wants to come in and sponsor the Israeli soccer team with gear. So that means we start boycotting Reebok. And Reebok gonna learn real quick. They're gonna learn real quick not to back genocidal maniac ethno-states, okay? It's insane. I don't know why it's such an obvious moral question. If you ever wanted to know what you would be doing if you were born in the 30s and 40s and World War II comes about and you wanted to know what you would be doing, it's whatever you're doing right now, right? Whether you're protesting in the streets or you're boycotting or you're tweeting or you're, you know, maybe you have some sort of political role that you serve. Maybe you're in office. Maybe you're a content creator making videos. Maybe you're in the news. You're journalists. You're spreading news. Maybe you're a podcaster and you talk to these important people, right? There's a lot of things you can do, okay? The only way to be complicit is to be involved in the act of genocide or to be ignorant of it and to be, you know, just to be complacent and to have that willful ignorance doesn't make you a good person. Doesn't, you know, if you just sit there while Yahtzee Germany does its thing, and you don't do anything about it, you know, you're not working on the factory lines, building the things that we need in the war, or you're not, you know, called to serve in said war. We're learning real quick of what kind of people we would be if Yahtzee Germany were happening today, because it is happening, and it's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. So you're learning real quick what you would be doing. It's crazy. I'm not here to shame you. There's a lot you can do, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And there's a lot of good groups of people that are out here providing the news that mainstream media refuses to cover. As we said here, these 2 articles of how Russia uses Ukrainians' hunger as a weapon, but when they talk about Israel, it's not using hunger as a weapon, it's halting aid. Like that's okay. Like it's not also a war crime. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can see that what Russia is doing is wrong. What Israel is doing is wrong. We can look at the other injustices in the world. What's going on in Sudan? What's going on with the Uyghur Muslims in China, right? There's multiple genocides, concentration camps, all sorts of things happening around the world. And the reason we don't go in is because there's no natural resources to be claimed, right? Unless there's some oil or something else, The United States doesn't want to get involved. And also we are kind of trying not to be as active in war zones, right? We're trying to pull back a little bit, for better or worse. And we talked about this on the last stream, actually, that I did here. We talked about how America First, this isn't the first time we've done America First, okay? If you're just hearing about it during Trump's presidencies and campaigns and rallies and all that stuff, this isn't the first time we've done America First. We covered it on the last stream. Back in the 30s, we tried that. We tried the isolationist stuff. It doesn't work. It was the reason that World War I led to World War II, was Americans' isolationist policy. We tried America First. We even called it America First. There's nothing new. There's nothing new about it. History rhymes, okay? And it's rhyming a lot right now. It's doing a lot of rhyming. There is so much rhyming happening right now. We are stuck in a poem. Now, let me pull up some other articles, because I think you need to see the injustice of what the press, I'm not some crazy conspiracy theorist, but the press is leaving out information. They're bearing the lead. They're hiding stuff from you when it comes to this stuff. And it's because there's vested interest, right? Maybe it's the guy who owns these companies happens to have a bias towards Israel, right? He's got land over there, or, whatever. So, once again, looking at how Western media frames a clear violation of international humanitarian law, as if deliberately blocking aid is a reasonable tactic. They're using these Israeli talking points to blame Hamas for Israel starving civilians. They're normalizing hunger as a weapon of war. So here's an article from the Associated Press, which normally I praise them for some of the stuff, some of the work they do. But look at this. Israel cuts off Gaza aid to pressure Hamas to accept a new ceasefire proposal. So pressuring someone to accept by using starvation as a weapon, and they're not saying it, but that's what they're doing, that's a crime. We agreed that we wouldn't let another Holocaust happen. We agree that it's wrong to starve a population, okay? That's why we have groups like USAID. We have all these different organizations, Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, right? We have all these things so that we can go around the world and try to stop bad things from happening. We try to stop diseases like C-19 and Ebola before they spread. We try to make sure that there's vaccines for things like measles and polio, and that there's small amounts of cases throughout the world rather than entire epidemics. We try to make sure that areas where food is scarce, we try to make sure that we distribute food to all those areas, right? So another article, NPR. Israel stops the delivery of aid to Gaza until Hamas accepts U.S. ceasefire extension. Another article, CNN. Israel stops humanitarian aid into Gaza after Hamas rejects extending ceasefire's first phase. So once again, same thing. New York Times. Israel halts aid to Gaza and proposes new framework for an end to the war. So they already had some of these phases planned out. Israel's changing the terms of the deal, and Hamas doesn't like it. And yeah, they're probably not in the greatest place to bargain. But there's hostages on both sides that need to be exchanged. There's aid that needs to be led into Gaza. There's bombing that needs to stop in both Gaza and the West Bank. And there's now an army base being built in the West Bank, which means that's another war crime, and that's more furthering occupation and war in a place where Hamas doesn't have any power. There's no control there. Now, I want to pull up another tweet here. This is from Mehdi Hassan. He says, No money for occupied Ukraine, but always money for occupier Israel. So he is quote tweeting Congressman Mike Lawler, who is New York's 17th district and a Republican. He says, I applaud Secretary Rubio and the Trump administration for expediting $4 billion in military aid to Israel, ensuring they have what they need to dismantle Hamas. Shame on the Biden administration for blocking support. Israelis can rest easier with a strong ally in the White House. So once again, Mehdi just, hammering home the point that, the Zelensky deal blew up thus far, and that, we used to be pro-Ukraine, but Trump is obviously pro-Russia, and there's always money for Israel, but not always for Ukraine. It's very weird, because if Russia gets their hands on Ukraine and they move into Poland, Europe is at risk. The whole world is at risk of a third world war. And let's be real, none of us want this to happen. It's in every country, every person on this planet's best interest that we do not enter another world war. Because there is a possibility, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but there are possibilities, as history has shown, like during World War II, where we dropped atomic bombs. That's a possibility. If the Axis powers were to start losing World War III, you don't think in some last-ditch attempt Russia would try, or North Korea or Russia or anyone would try to fire off some nukes at the last second just to win the game, or say, if I'm going down, we're all going down? It's in our best interest that doesn't happen. Now, last thing that I have to cover here, so ridiculous. Darren Beattie has joined the State Department, and he was a former Donald Trump speechwriter who was fired in 2018 after CNN revealed that he spoke at a conference attended by white nationalists. He's now back and working for Trump in the State Department. He has previously, of course, worked as a media entrepreneur and political strategist. We need to look at one of Darren Beattie's tweets here, and I'm going to pull it up on screen because you probably won't believe me if I just read it to you. But Darren Beattie, once again, as I said, if we look him up, he's at the U.S. Department of State now. But this tweet is from October 4th, 2024. So not long enough ago to say, oh, he's had a change of heart, a change of mind. Oh, this was a long time ago. He probably doesn't have these beliefs anymore. I don't know. I don't think so, guys. Look at that. So his tweet says, and this is his tweet. I am not saying this. I'm reading his tweet. He says that competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. So this guy is crazy. He continues to say, unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. That is crazy. So that is what Darren J. Beattie is saying, and that is his official Twitter account. We've confirmed that. He's a political scientist, strategist, and is now in the State Department. Lunatic like that, who thinks that women and anyone who is not of a light complexion of the white color believes, in his own words, he says that competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. That's crazy. That's insane. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're enjoying our news coverage here. But yeah, just kind of going through what Darren J. Beattie has said. Granted, this was in October, but I think it speaks to his state of mind. And do you want someone like this running the or being working in the State Department? I should say that, working in the State Department. So that is a tweet from someone who is appointed now to the State Department. He says, competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. The dude thinks that discrimination against white men is a thing, and that the whole dismantling across our federal government of DEI initiatives, and even Target dismantling their DEI initiatives and them being boycotted as a result, rightfully so. And I believe Pepsi is also dismantling DEI stuff. And I mean, we're seeing it everywhere that this is some sort of trend with, Trump and his people, and obviously right-wing leaning corporations are, taking this opportunity to dismantle stuff like this, which is just insane to me. But let's keep up the boycotts. I mean, whether it's for Israel, whether it's for these DEI initiatives, I think boycotts are working. As I said, Starbucks and McDonald's have made announcements that they're feeling the pressure from boycotts. There have been lots of different businesses that have shut that down. This is my third stream, by the way, so I believe, hopefully after I shut this down, we'll have the opportunity for panels. I would love to have people up. I'd love to, be able to talk with people about this. A lot of times I'm recording YouTube videos and TikToks and such, just me reading from my teleprompter of stuff I've put in, or just reading out tweets to you guys, and finding news, and just reading. I mean, we read out the whole thing about water in Gaza. I mean, and how the sanitation systems have been destroyed, and how water is scarce. So, I mean, we're at that point. So I appreciate you all for tuning in. I wanted to sort of do some daily news breakdowns for you all here. It's a lot to cover. Times are scary, but as I've continued to say, the court systems are going to work things out in a way. The court systems are going to, slowly attack some of these things, but Democrats need to be loud. They need to be speaking up. They need to be informing people. And I'm seeing it from people like Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Bernie Sanders, of course. Sorry, I'm blanking on someone else, but let me. I liked Hakeem Jeffries initially, but I feel like he's not really speaking up and speaking loudly, and it just feels like a lot of Democrats are not pushing the pedal down. It just feels very soft, and the messaging is just not strong enough there. Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of his name. It just slips my head sometimes. I'm thinking about so many different people, but he's not quite as loud as some of the other ones. But I feel like, and Al Green. Al Green has been pretty loud as well. But yeah, I mean, Democrats are not doing great on their messaging, and that's something that we need to push on and rally. Yo, what's up, Renee? How you doing? We're talking, I guess it's more echoing what we talked about earlier on Robin's stream. Rob? Yeah. Of how the Democrats do feel that it just feels like they're not really pressing hard enough in this fight. They're not really speaking up loud enough, no matter what it is, the issue that we're talking about. Thank you. I appreciate all those hearts. We've been having a wonderful little time here. But yeah, we went through Darren J. Beatty's comments, which are absurd and insane. And he is now a State Department appointee. Um, I couldn't agree more. It's almost like they won't speak up. Yeah, and it's almost like, at least with like people like Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, even Hakeem Jeffries, it feels like he's not speaking up like out of spite. They're like, well, you didn't vote us in, you didn't get Kamala Harris in, you didn't give us the Senate and the House, so therefore we're just gonna take our toys and go home. And it's like, no, this is the time to campaign, as we kind of discussed earlier today. I don't know if you were there for that portion, but we were talking about how Kamala Harris was sort of announcing that she was going to run 2028, and we were thinking like, okay, well, what does everybody think of that? So I actually would like to know what you think and what people think in the comments. Let me know what you think of a 2028 run. But we were talking about that, and she needs to be loud. Like, she had 90 days to throw together a campaign. That's insane. That's unprecedented. She did all right. Wasn't perfect, but why? Well, when you're vice president, you don't really get a lot of credit. You don't get to do lots of crazy cool things. You're really just in the shadow of the president, right? Historically, unless you're JD Vance, then you screw up deals with the Ukraine and play bad cop with Trump. So we've never seen anything like that, and it's insane. But yeah, she's really strong. She's smart. She has that prosecutorial experience, which I think is great. When she was in the Senate, she raked people over the coals. Anytime there were Senate hearings or any sort of time to question people or to call out Republicans on their BS, she was there, front row, loud and proud. And we don't see that. We don't see that from her as a vice president. We didn't even really see much of that on the campaign trail. I don't feel like she differentiated herself enough from Biden and his policies, like the Gaza thing, which was very unpopular. All the data shows post-election that had they pivoted on Gaza and gone anti-genocide, they very likely would have won. And that a lot of people stayed home for that reason. Now, a lot of people also stayed home for another reason. That's probably the racism, the sexism, because she's a woman, because she is non-white, right? Or YT as they call it. Renee says, I'm all for a 2028 run. Is there anything that former leaders like Obama can do, like as far as stepping up? I mean, yeah, Obama does the whole thing. Let's just see. I don't even know. Like, what's Obama even doing right now? Is he? Okay, his last post was Women's History Month, February 14th, a little Valentine's Day post. Looks like he was pretty happy the Eagles won the Super Bowl. U.S. aid. Okay, posted about U.S. aid. Yeah, it's like, it's not really his job as a former president to be speaking up, but like, it wouldn't hurt, right? We always drag him out every election now to speak on behalf of the party. And I wanted to ask another thing, and I don't know if you were there on that panel, but I know I asked this to Robin and some other folks. I asked, do you think when Obama was in the room, it was one of the campaign headquarters or whatever, and he was in the room with all those African American men, and the numbers were low from them, that they were likely not going to vote for Kamala, and he kind of lectured them. He kind of gave them a tough talk, which, I agree. It probably had to be said, but I think he might have disenfranchised some of those voters by, bringing them in the room like he's their dad and saying, now listen, son, You really need to fall in line and vote for her. This is not the time to be shy about a woman being in power or think that a woman can't be in power. Look at what your mothers who are African American, look at the burdens that they go through, right? Look at the challenges they face, holding down multiple jobs, potentially being in single parent households, living under, some sort of oppression from the police, discrimination. Like, just think of the millions of struggles that the mothers have to put up with, right? Like, Kamala's right there for you, dude. Like, women are just as suited to take roles of leadership and power. And I mean, if anyone has the credentials to do so, it's Kamala. But I just believe personally that she aligned too heavily with Israel, and that was a mistake. And there were probably other things that she could have campaigned harder on, like the issues that matter to us. Like, talk about what you and Biden did for the economy. You guys suck at being cheerleaders for all the things that you do. You guys don't celebrate your wins. The American people don't know. If the news doesn't tell them, and if you don't tell them, they don't fucking know. So, like, I can read off statistics. We could go look at bills and laws and executive orders and all sorts of things that Biden and Harris did. But if they don't tell you that they did it, and we don't, and also there's the other half of it, right? Like, a lot of people feel like we don't feel the change, right? Like, everyone felt our pocketbooks getting a little tight around election time. And Trump was offering a solution, okay? I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he even had a solution. He doesn't have any policies. But Trump was selling you the idea that he was going to create a better America, that he was going to, that magically once he gets elected, gas prices will go down to $2 because we're going to open oil fields in national parks and drill, baby, drill, screw the environment, screw, having breathable air. It's more about being able to drive your cars and trucks and pollute the world. I feel like he could have approached it differently, but it did need to be said, just not in that way. Yeah, I felt like just me, as a non-African American male, obviously. Okay, just stating the obvious in the room. But from my reaction of how Obama was speaking, I felt like I could have taken that tough talk. If I were in the room, I would have been like, okay, that's fair. It doesn't feel good for you to talk to me this way, but like, I understand. But I think to the people that he was talking to, they were like, man, who are you to tell me that? Like, shut up. I can vote how I want. Don't talk to me like I'm a little kid who just got in trouble. They did so much, but no one knew about it. Yeah. Democratic messaging sucks. And it's not just the presidency or the vice presidency. A lot of it's across the entire party. And the only stuff we hear on the news is doom and gloom. It's Republicans got rid of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Republicans got rid of Women's History Month. Republicans, Trump gets rid of Black History Month. What? Unless you're going to replace it with something better, like just, as Morgan Freeman said, make Black history American history. Celebrate our shared history as a people. But I do think there is importance in highlighting the contribution of African Americans to our history. So I'm not against having a month to celebrate that. Never have been, never will be. But it's possible that Morgan Freeman has a really strong point of like, it's just American history, okay? It's not that Sam Wilson is Black Captain America. It's that Sam Wilson is now Captain America. Just Captain America. Not a certain color of Captain America. Just the one. It's just the one, guys. Keep up. It's asinine. Yas. Oh my God, we got the yas. Yas. Oh my gosh. It's so insane. I know I made videos immediately after the election, and I was pretty upset at Kamala. Um, and I think it's fair. I think it was fair to criticize the hell out of how that campaign was run. They had a lot of money, and they had all the celebrity endorsements and musicians and concerts, and but they didn't campaign hard enough on the dinner table issues. Okay, Obamacare doesn't fix the healthcare industry. It's a great step forward, right? We insured millions of people from that deal. We insured, like I did it. But Democrats have gotten millions of people to have health insurance that otherwise would not be able to afford it. So that's a start. But arguably, and I'm a Bernie bro, like through and through. I love a lot of Bernie's policies. So I believe Medicare for all or some sort of single payer option would be great. Yeah. See, Bernie's great. He's doing the oligarchy tour. He's touring around the United States. You know, I don't know. He might try to run in 2028. I don't know. He's going to be pretty old. I don't support the idea of having 80-year-olds in the White House, but he is sharp as a tack. He's really good. But if Kamala Harris runs on things that are popular and things that matter and really hits home and gets us by the heartstrings, then she's a better candidate who could win, right? And it's not that we need to lean to more socialist policies, but like, look at all the policies that are technically socialist policies that are really great. Public schools, public libraries, the fire department, the police force. Okay, well, the police force started from what would you call it? Mandatory labor plantations. Police has origins that go back to that, but nevertheless, publicly funded protective force, technically a good thing, should be a good thing, except for a few bad apples, right? I think she did the best she could given the circumstances. However, she could have touched more things. Yeah. And the other thing is that I don't believe, and I'll state the case, I don't believe that presidents control gas prices. It's just not true. Everyone likes to brag about it whenever the prices go down. Everyone says, oh my God, Biden's amazing. But the thing that happens, and it doesn't matter who's president, is that industry is entirely based on supply and demand. It's very fickle, the fuel industry of gas and oil and all this stuff. It's very fickle industry. So you can't just control it, right? The market controls it. Now, presidents can do things, right? Like they can do the crazy shit Trump's doing. What's up, Polly Sci? How you doing? I wish I could bring people up. This is the third stream, so panels are coming soon to a theater near you. I don't know. Maybe I could pull it down and bring it back up and see if I get that message. We've been live for quite a bit here. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah. So Trump with the whole drill baby drill thing. Like that's not necessarily going to drop gas prices. It's a fickle industry. It's supply and demand. But yeah, Kamala, I think she did do the best she could with what she had. And, there's a certain decorum with vice presidents. Like a lot of the reasons why, and a lot of political analysts were saying this, a lot of reasons why she couldn't like pivot hard away from certain Biden policies, like the genocide in Gaza. is because Biden was so into that. And as a vice president, you can't really oppose your president, if that makes sense. Like there's a way of doing things, and it sucks because it totally handcuffed her. It she had a hand tied behind her back while she's trying to rock this campaign. It sucks. And there's probably more than that, obviously. As we said, the race thing comes into it, the woman thing comes into it. But I mean, Mexico has a female president. Germany has had a female run their country, right? There's countries all over the world. Britain, other countries have had women, and arguably even women of color. It's not, I think we're at the point where it's completely possible. And I do agree, there is a lot of racism still in this country. I mean, look at what Darren J. Beatty says here. He's a State Department appointee, and he says that competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work, and that our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling feelings of women and minorities. That's insane, my dude. Like, why are people like this being put in power? Birds of a feather stick together. Hang on. There's a reason why Trump is putting his buddies in place. They're all just like each other, right? It's crazy. Yeah, they can streamline the process. They can make deals, they can do all sorts of things, but at the end of the day, supply and demand controls a lot of things, right? So, sometimes groceries, it is all supply and demand, If eggs are coming up short, egg prices go up. Eggs are more rare, whatever. But I think there is also the idea that a lot of corporations are overcharging for their products, price gouging, all this stuff. That's why we had the FCC, Lena Khan, I believe, go after all these companies, and now we're going the opposite direction. It's bad. But let MAGA tell it the president controls everything. Yeah. And a lot of his executive orders are bullshit. It's stuff he can't control, but he thinks he can, so he just signs it and goes along. A lot of that stuff is going to get struck down the courts and dragged out, and there's a lot of lawsuits, Democrats suing Republicans all over the place. Yeah, Kamala trying to go after the price gougers. It's a great plan, and that needed to be even louder. I just felt like most of the campaign race was about, oh my God, stop fascism. It's the boy who cried fascism, right? Like it's just, oh my God, if Trump gets elected, it's just like Hitler. I agree. I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive. I agree, please. I agree, but that can't be the only thing we run on. We can't every election say, oh my God, you got to vote for me, otherwise the fascists will win, or otherwise MAGA wins, or otherwise Trump gets another term. Now, granted, this should be his last term. I keep saying that. That's the only silver lining we have right now, is that he supposedly can't get elected again, okay? Do you think that we can turn the tables in our favor for the midterms? Yes, and we have to. But, the weak messaging that we're seeing right now, it's not a good start, right? We do have 2 years, but those 2 years, I will tell you, they go by fast. I know time is relative, and it feels like probably to you and me that like every day is going by really slow. And it feels like Trump is doing a million evil things that are setting us back, right? And even with the stuff about the holidays, right? Like getting rid of, like, MLK Day? Like, did he get rid of Juneteenth? Like, I feel like he will if he hasn't already. That's the only one I haven't heard anything on. But I feel like that would be on the chopping block for someone as racist as this guy is. So he hasn't, but it's coming. Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. So, it feels like it's one thing after another. And let me actually, let's see. Let me see if I can find the joke here. Trying to find the part of the joke here. Yeah, okay. So there's a John Mulaney joke, and if you've heard it already, you can stop me. But this joke really explains a lot of what's going on. So John Mulaney says, here's how I try to look at it. And this is just me. This guy being the president, Trump, it's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital. I think eventually everything's going to be okay. But I have no idea what's going to happen next. And neither do any of you, and neither do your parents, because there's a horse loose in the hospital. It's never happened before. No one knows what the horse is going to do next. Least of all, the horse. He's never been in a hospital before. He's as confused as you are. There's no experts. They try to find experts on the news. They're like, we're joined now by a man that once saw a bird in the airport. He's out of here with that shit. We've all seen a bird in the airport. This is a horse loose in a hospital. When a horse is loose in the hospital, you got to stay updated. So all day long, you walk around. What did the horse do? The updates, they're not always bad. Sometimes it's just odd. It'll be like, the horse used the elevator? I didn't know he knew how to do that. The creepiest days are when you don't hear from the horse at all. You're down in the operating room like, hey, has anyone heard? Those are the quiet days when people are like, it looks like the horse has finally calmed down. And then 10 seconds later, the horse is like, I got to run towards the baby incubators and smash them with my hooves. I've got nice hooves and a long tail. I'm a horse. That's what I thought you'd say, you dumb fucking horse. Okay, so he goes on. And then you go to brunch with people and they're like, there shouldn't be a horse in the hospital. And it's like, we're well past that. Then other people say, if there's going to be a horse in the hospital, then I'm going to say the N-word on TV. And those don't match up at all. So I like this joke quite a bit. And then for a second, it seems like maybe we could survive the horse. And then 5,000 miles away, a hippo is like, I have a nuclear bomb and I'm going to blow up the hospital. And before we could say anything, the horse was like, if you even look at the hospital, I'll stomp you to death with my hooves. I dare you to do it. I want you to do it. I want you to do it so I can stomp you with my hooves. I'm so effing crazy. You think you're effing crazy. I'm an effing hippopotamus. I live in a lake of mud. I'm fucking crazy. And all of us are like, okay, like poor Andy Cohen at those reunions. Okay. And then for a second, we're like, maybe the horse catcher will catch the horse. And then the horse is like, I've fired the horse catcher. That's when Trump fired the FBI director, right? Like no one could come after him. No one could prosecute him. He can do that. That shouldn't be allowed, no matter who the horse is. I don't remember that in Hamilton. Sometimes if you make fun of the horse, people will get upset. These are the people that open the door for the horse. I don't judge anyone, but sometimes I ask people, I go, hey, how come you opened the door for the horse? And they go, well, the hospital was inefficient. Or sometimes they go, if you're so mad at the horse, how come you weren't mad when the last guy did this 3.5 years ago? You're beating up on the horse when the last guy essentially did the same thing 5 years ago. First off, get out of here with your facts. You're like the kid at the sleepover who after midnights is like, it's tomorrow now. Get the fuck out of here with your technicalities. Just because you're accurate doesn't mean you're interesting. That was fun when we watched Beetlejuice tonight. Don't you mean last night? It's after midnight. Okay, I think the joke is wrapping up here. Why don't you take your sleeping bag, get out of my house, take your EpiPen, take your goddamn EpiPen, get out of my house But when people say, how come you never got mad at the last guy? I say, because I wasn't paying attention. I used to pay less attention before it was a horse. Also, I thought the last guy was pretty smart, and he seemed good at his job, and I'm lazy by nature. I'm lazy by nature too. So I don't check up on people when they seem okay at their job. You may think that's an ignorant answer, but it's not. It's a great answer. If you left your baby with your mother tonight, you're not going to race home and check the nanny cam. But if you leave your baby with Gary Busey, and now there's Nazis again. When I was a kid, Yahtzees was just an analogy you could use to decimate your child during an argument at the dinner table. Now there's new Yahtzees. I don't care for these new Yahtzees, and you may quote me on that. These new Yahtzees. Oof. And then it gets into some Jewish stuff, which I'm not going to repeat because I don't want that to be taken out of context. But in essence, that's what we're dealing with. It's the horse in the hospital joke. So I don't know. John Mulaney does it better than I do. I'm just reading it, but it's such a good joke, and the way he tells it and the expressions he has, but it's so true, and I think about it every day. And he told this joke during what was this, like 2018? So this is during this is on Netflix. It's Kid Gorgeous at Radio City Music Hall, and it's John Mulaney. But yeah, he tells that joke about the horse in the hospital and how nobody really knows how to treat Trump, and what are they doing, right? Are you going to host debate panels or informative, friendly panels once you get panel access? I think I want to. So I've done debates, and I believe, at least for now, with the kind of debates, especially since I cover a lot of Gaza, a lot of Palestine, a lot of West Bank stuff all through that area. And I do cover everything else happening in the world, and obviously the States is very important to me as someone who's living in Texas to cover all this. But I've tried arguing with Zionists and people trying to explain that it's like not okay to unalive men, women, and children, how it's not okay to drop things on hospitals, schools, churches. And you can argue till you're blue in the face, and we just go back and forth on, well, this time, the Jews lived here. This time the Palestinians lived here. But then the Ottomans came in, and then the British, and then, and we just keep moving the goalposts during arguments. So there's no getting through to them. So I like the idea more of informative, friendly panels. I like the idea of sharing news. I like the idea of a little pushback, right? Like, you're not supposed to agree with me 100%. And I'm not necessarily going to agree with you 100%, even if we're on the same team, right? Like, I might just be like you might just be like, I love abortion. We need to have it all the way. And I might be like, oh, well, maybe just in certain cases. Like, I don't know. I believe women should have full autonomy for all their choices. But there's also the Catholic in me that thinks, while it is okay to not enjoy the fact that abortions are happening, no one likes it, least of all the people getting them, right? But women need access to healthcare, and it needs to be fair. And, closing those clinics that provide access and allow them to get scans and treatment and medication and to keep up with their health. There's a lot of women that are suffering from stuff, and it's really bad. And these ectopic pregnancies and stuff like that, people's lives are at risk, and doctors are scared to do anything about it because of these draconian laws, right? Yeah, so I agree. There's not really a lot getting through them. I think if someday I feel like I could make a difference in the way that Isaiah Martin makes a difference, in the way that Parker and Dean and Chris Mowry, and I feel like I'm missing one of them. Am I missing? Harry. Harry's the other one. I like Harry. I like Harry quite a bit. Harry's pretty good. I like him quite a bit. He's a little crazy, Harry. Okay. As someone who's had an ectopic pregnancy, AB needs to be legal in every state. I agree. I agree. And I've tried to sort of tell like other Catholics, because you understand that Catholicism, they this Christianity values life, and they I don't know what they really. I mean, I've tried to keep up with what the church thinks, and they believe that there's a soul in there at some point, and it's heavily debatable, and it gets ridiculous. I think I've tried to tell Catholics, if you want to make a difference with abortion, you, I don't think outlawing it's the right way, because as we've said, ectopic pregnancies, there's things like grape and recess in incest. You know what I'm talking about, when family or other people abuse. Anyway, I never know what TikTok terms to say for that. But when stuff like that happens, I say what Catholics and Christians can do is provide information, right? Provide all the information needed to avoid abortions. Provide all the information against abortions. You can have pamphlets. You can have, spiritual advisors at these clinics that say, listen, young lady, that's a wonderful little child in there, or whatever. Like, you can campaign all you want. But the thing about standing outside clinics with weapons and, protesting and making people's day even worse, that have to go into those clinics, and shaming them when it might not be a choice for them. It might be a financial burden. It might be health issues. It might be something entirely unrelated to abortion. They might just be there to check on the pregnancy and see how things are going. And there's the teenage pregnancies too, that gets into a whole other mess. And guess what? Unless all Republicans and Christians are going to adopt every single baby, and especially babies that come from grapists, you know how damaging it is to go through the whole process of birthing a child? I don't. But the process of birthing a child, and to have it resemble one of the most traumatic moments of your life, and be reminded of that every time you look at that human being, that's rough. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So it's very debatable, but due to health issues and more, the way the laws are, it needs to be legal. I agree. I'm with you all the way. I think some people are going to have little disagreements, but I want to find a way that suits both sides, because, like, I understand where the religious folks are coming from. As a Catholic, I understand where they're coming from, right? I understand that they care about life until it's out of the womb, and then all of a sudden all the Republicans are like, get to work, you lazy baby. Like, I'm late for my shift. Like, they treat them like crap. But like, when they're unborn, they believe they have so many rights. Like, and what was it? The Mississippi, we talked about this morning, the Mississippi law that I call it the Mississippi sperm bill, but Senator Bradford here says that contraception begins at erection act. And I didn't get to mention it during the panel because we had a lot of people talking all at once. But I don't know. I feel like some people might know this, but like, I know men know this a lot, but men are kind of erect all day, like all the time, and not even by choice. Like, sometimes you're at grandma's house eating cookies, and all of a sudden you look down and you're like, oh my God. Like, and it's not because you saw it. It's not what you think. It's like, it's just a natural thing that happens all the time. So like, if that's a life being taken from us, that's too bad. That's a rough day. But you'll just be driving the car and you'll be like, what? What's going on? Why are we pitching a tent here? So, so it's not always, and that's the other thing. There's so much misinformation around this crap, right? Like everybody thinks that young women are getting abortions like it's birth control, or that or that these late term abortions are a thing. It's not a thing. There are times where the risk of the mother or the baby dying, they have to go in and do something. You can't let both of them die, and at some point you might prioritize the life of the mother over the child, depending on what the state is and what the decisions are. Not the state as in, state, but like the state of the situation, I should be clear. Even Roe v. Wade had stipulations on when you could get one. Yeah, exactly. Unless medically necessary, exactly. Now, had they codified that, which I believe Democrats had, what? How many years? How many years? Sorry, I don't have the date at the top of my. Oh yeah, freaking 1973. Literally decades, dude. Like 50 years. They've had 50 years to do something about it. But you know what? It's better to use it. It's, at least in their mind, in the minds of Democrats, it's better to use it as an issue every election to be like, if you don't want the Republicans to take away your right to abortion, you got to vote for us. Otherwise, we don't have much to run on. Like, are you kidding me, dude? So they use it as a hinge issue, right? The same way Republicans use, hey, if you don't want the Democrats to take your guns, you got to vote for us. Protect America. So, I mean, it's been a while. So I want to, that's the reason, another reason why I want to have panels, because like I try to understand the abortion issue, and I try to debate it even amongst the left of just like, how do we, like, we're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to find a middle ground, but we're also going to have to get exactly what we want out of this issue, right? And there's a lot of information. There's a lot of misinformation about this stuff. And there's got to be a right way to do it, And there's got to be a way to fight all these rumors as well. I mean, that's just ridiculous what they think happens in these clinics, right? And we have to have some humanity and some empathy here. And it feels like Republican, MAGA is devoid of that. I was so heavily Dem that it can be hard for me to compromise with their ideologies. Yeah. And, I mean, that's what politics used to be. It used to be that we sort of agreed on the solution. We just disagreed on how to get there. Republicans might say, okay, we could do something about abortion, but like, this is our idea. And then Democrats would say, well, we have a different idea and we'd like to do it this way. And then you usually sort of make little compromises and then you get things done. But now it's so partisan. It's like, if we don't elect all Democrats in the House, Senate, Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court isn't stacked with Democrats, if the presidency isn't a Democrat, then we can't get anything done. It's all gridlock, right? And I agree. I'm progressive Democrat, so like I'm pretty far right. I love the Bernie approach. But I'm just trying to understand what both sides want, and I don't agree with what Republicans think we should do with abortion. I don't think abortion should be outlawed, and I don't buy their BS about how they say, "Oh yeah, we'll let you have it in those extreme cases or when it's medically necessary." Well, why is it happening? Why are there all these deaths and all these women having to travel to different states and then make sure that those providers are in their network or whatever? And how are you supposed to do that, during an emergency? That's the whole thing. Like, what if you're having some sort of emergency? What if you're having a miscarriage? What if there's something happening like an ectopic pregnancy? You can't just you can't just drive 8 hours and get out of Texas and go to another state, right? I'm really willing to hear them out, but I don't think they're willing to admit that Trump is wrong, and that's what bugs me. Yeah, that's difficult. It's really hard on some of these issues. But yeah, I think if even if we just workshop it among the left, if we sort of think, well, what if Republicans want this? Would we compromise? Would we try to figure out something? I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be because the Supreme Court's gonna be against us. So trying to think of like what, I don't know if even a presidential see that could still they could still, if he did like, if whoever the next president is did like a presidential order or something to, I just don't think it would preserve the right to abortion. I think the courts would go after it, and the Supreme Court would obviously vote in favor of. Obviously, we know what they vote for if they've struck down Roe v. Wade, and obviously, gay marriage is probably next, according to Clarence Thomas, which is insane to me that so many rights that have been reached, and how much effort and years of campaigning and protesting, and you have to go to get this, and all of a sudden the setbacks are instantaneous. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but yeah, it is like we're going backwards, right? Like all these like race relations, for lack of a better word, like it just feels like Trump is setting us back so much by allowing Yahtzees to take prominence here, and to I I know it's little things about the holidays, federal holidays being deleted or whatever. I know it seems like a small thing. It's like, why are you mad about the holidays? Well, no, it took us a while to get to that place. It took us a while to realize what those things stand for, man. Shit. But yeah, I think information and education and community is important. And I mean, obviously, with what I do on my TikTok and my YouTube channel,
someone is at the front door.
Obviously, with what I do there, I want to be more in tune with what other people think, and I think the best way to do that is stuff like these TikTok panels, and to see people in the chat even reacting to what we're all saying and what we're all discussing. I think it's great to have pushback. I think it's great to agree or disagree. I know it's bad to be in sort of an echo chamber, and that's why I look at sites like Blue Sky, which has been like super left wing, and then obviously on the right wing end, you have Twitter, which has just devolved into just insanity, and then you have Truth Social, which is even more just MAGA land. There is a danger to being in echo chambers, but I do think we need to have people. Obviously, they're the debaters, right? Maybe not everyone's called to that. My heart rate got up pretty high arguing with Zionists. So, maybe that's not my calling. Maybe I'll do debates someday. But I also see that the debate thing, and I'm not criticizing anyone who debates, but I think Isaiah knows this. I think all the guys, Parker Dean, Harry, Chris Mowry, all these guys, I think they know that you have to do more than the blood sport debates. Like that's easy views, and it's arguments, and it's good entertainment, right? It's great TV. Okay, like everyone loves to see someone put in their place, win or lose, whether it's the host loses or the guest wins or the guest loses and looks like a total idiot, and then everybody just slams donos and we have a great time. Right? There's a place for that, but I think you got to have the podcasts, you got to have the panels, you got to have the friendly chats, you got to have informative news videos. I mean, you have to have the sit downs, right? Because I mean, if we're just debating, then it's nothing. We're not changing anything. We're not growing or learning from that experience. You know, we need more. And and so I've just even briefly looked at what Polly does, and I'm really impressed. She's really putting a lot of information out there, and I I do like that she debates and stuff like that. So I'm not criticizing anyone who debates, but I'm just saying that's one facet of all the things you have to do in order if we're really going to try to change things, right? Oh my gosh, it says Ashley joined and often watches your live. Try thanking them. Don't tell me I thank her all the time, okay? No, Ashley is incredible. Arguably my favorite. Um, oh my gosh. Keep being informative. Keep fighting the good fight. I'll be supporting you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And I want to have more conversations. And I think these panels have been really great. So I don't know. And I enjoy guesting. I enjoy hosting either way. It's been really fun. And we can come up with some fun topics of things to discuss. I mean, I think at the end of the day, at least when I was building the YouTube channel, which I started it around election time, and I was really nervous. I've been nervous for a lot of years to, because I do like a gaming channel. So Aaron Shack on TikTok and YouTube is my gaming channel. So I've done video games on YouTube and Twitch for like 10, 11 years. And I was worried that creating political content would hurt my brand, and a lot of people advise against it. Um, because if you bring politics into like an entertainment space, it doesn't go well. Like, remember the Dixie Chicks? That didn't go well for them, right? Like, there's different bands of people. It will, but don't let that stop you. Yeah. So I decided I'm going to create a separate channel and call it Aaron Shack Politics. And I'd wanted to do it for years, and I saw January 6th happen, and I remember watching it on my other monitor all day while I was streaming. I was playing video games and live streaming, and I looked over there and I was like, I could be watching democracy fall to pieces while I'm over here entertaining people playing video games. And every now and then someone would chime in the chat and say if I'm seeing what's happening on the news. So like I knew at some point, and at some point I was like, I'm just going to dive in and do it. I'm YouTube partner on my gaming channel. I know how to create a channel and how to create videos and I've gone viral a few times. I'm not saying that I'm a professional or that I'm, some viral master like Mr. Beast, but I, I know enough that I can create a channel and make it successful, and not for the sake of necessarily my wallet, right? But like, there needs to be more left leaning news, journalism, discussions, commentary, and it can't be just MSNBC or CNN or, and we're starting to see people like Don Lemon and Jim Acosta on his Substack. He's gone independent. Mehdi Hassan's gone independent with Zateo, which is also on Substack and YouTube and all over the place. And then, I mean, we're seeing this whole thing on TikTok with politics, right? And people looking for creators here to be informed, right? Like I've seen women doing makeup tutorials, and while they're doing makeup, they're telling you about the daily news, and they're like, and Trump was doing this, and and now Juneteenth is gonna be canceled. Like this is apparently how makeup supply. I'm not anywhere as well versed as a lot of you guys, but I'm still trying myself. Well, that's important, right? Like, it's so important to just put yourself out there and talk about things and talk about how you feel. And if you're not if you're wrong, but like if there's more that you need to be educated on, I feel like people will tell you. Like, if there's something I don't know about abortion and the female body, which, fair enough, people will let me know, and that's how you learn. It's great to be corrected. It's not bad to be wrong. A lot of people are afraid to admit they're wrong or say they're sorry and stuff like that. So it's important to grow and learn from experiences. So just leave yourself open to be educated, and to our views constantly change too, right? Like, probably whatever my political beliefs were when I was 15 are probably a little different from where I'm at now. It's not that I was a raging Republican at 15, but I think I was obviously pretty I don't feel like my parents forced their political ideologies on me, but I think just the way I was raised and my upbringing and what I saw in the world around me, I knew the way that I wanted to be. And I had certain role models that taught me the way to be and taught me about empathy. Listen, I have Jon Stewart, Green Lantern. He's always sitting. I think he looks good. I don't have a stand to make him fly. But there are certain people that teach you about good moral values, about the American dream, about how it's a dream that we all share, right? Now I sound like Mr. Rogers, but or Reading Rainbow. But how the American dream is something for all of us, right? And it's something that we all want to achieve. We want a home, we want a white picket fence, we want to make sure we have food, we want to have a family, we want to have kids, all that stuff. And we want to live in a free country where we're safe, right? Whatever factors into your version of the American dream. But in general, we have either come here because we've been brought on a mandatory work camp, or we have fled war or persecution or something from other countries, and we came to America looking for opportunity. We can't shut the door on the next generation. Hey, I appreciate you, Renee. Have a good one. Get to that schoolwork. I saw your story. You're making good grades, so keep up with that. Focus on that. And I hope we'll regroup. I'm still trying to navigate everything, and I'm trying to show up in more of people's panels, and obviously I'll be hosting my own as well, and you're always welcome. So I look forward to more discussions. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I think let me make sure I covered everything here. Yeah. I saw who was it? I think it was Dean. And I think I sent it to you, Ashley. It was Dean talking to a Trump supporter, and the Trump supporter was admitting he was wrong, but not only that, and he was a veteran. So he was admitting that as someone, serving abroad, he said certain policies that Obama had kind of made it difficult for the military to do what they wanted to do. And when Trump came in, it felt like they had less restriction, and he liked that. So that's what this veteran said. Um, and he wasn't seeing bad effects of Trump's first presidency. But then he saw what the second presidency is doing to people like him who are veterans or federal employees and what's happened around him. And now he says, I regret my vote for Trump. So initially, people might react with, disgust and disdain and let's shame this guy. And fair enough. Rightfully so in some ways. But I think it was Dean. I don't know. I get Dean and Chris mixed up sometimes. They look so similar, those two. I need to look at images of them next to each other to kind of distinguish them apart. But they were talking, and he was talking about how he was going to be at these marches and these protests, and he's going to DC, and he's immediately aligning with the issues that Democrats care about and push. So he's not only saying, hey, I regret my vote. He's not just saying, I regret my vote, but I'm going to vote for J.D. Vance when he runs in 2028 or whatever, or Donald Trump Jr. or something. Oh my God, like any of his kids. Um, he he basically joined the Democratic Party and just realized, hey man, I've been on the wrong team, perhaps, right? Like that's. I thought that was important, so I'll try to find that video and maybe I can just do like a repost and share it from here. But yeah, I thought that this was a risky decision to start a politics channel, but maybe it's paying off, and maybe they're not only for me. Is this paying off? But there's a value here to people, and I think every time I either read the comments section on some of my videos, I know there's a lot of hate there at times, but I also see people that are spreading love and that are thankful that I've provided information on what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, for example, right? What's up, Sky? He says, "Hey, comrade." Oh my gosh, appreciate that. Appreciate the follow. Oh my gosh, is that the Punisher? No way. Okay. What's the left side? Is it got like a Spartan helmet or something? What's going on there? I can't tell. I like the Punisher. I'm a big fan, and I'm not a right winger. I know the Punisher skull has been sort of co-opted by the right wing movement, but actually, in actuality, as you can see in my, I believe it's my pinned video on Sabra, I actually talk a lot about the Punisher as an anti-hero and as someone who would be dramatically opposed to the police brutality, the discrimination against African Americans that the police have, that he would be opposed against corruption via politicians, via the police and other forces, and that he often takes vigilantism and crime fighting to a rather deadly extreme. And I don't know. That's why I find the character fascinating. He's someone who faces deep tragedy and tries to overcompensate, I believe, for the wrongs that have been done to him. And I don't advocate for anything bad to happen to anyone, but I'm just saying we could use a Punisher. I'm just saying. I mean, we have Luigi, but where's Mario? And where's the Punisher? Where's Frank Castle? So yes, it's a Spartan helmet. That's cool. All right. I don't even know what that means. If that has some sort of significance, or if you just like Spartan helmets, you just got a fascination with it. All right, listen, I've it's been a little bit of a lengthy live here. I just wanted to go live for a little bit and cover some of these issues, but we talked a lot about the Gaza ceasefire, what's happening. They're shutting off water, shutting off aid to Gaza, um, and we talked about how the press covers it and how that's biased. We talked about how um, No Other Land, the documentary, won an Oscar with a Israeli and Palestinian crew working on that movie, and they won the Oscar. Yet there's no distribution for that movie in the United States. There's no way we can legally watch it unless we were to perhaps sail the high seas. Might be something to do. Um, but I believe in supporting a project like that. I would love to buy tickets or purchase the film or download it somehow, and fairly compensating the hard work that has been put in to document the war crimes happening there. So we talked about that. And then lastly, we talked about the crazy tweet from Darren Beattie, which was, going from anti DEI to sexism and racism and, some weird thing going on there. So once again, I want to thank you all for watching. We'll wrap it up here, and I'll see if we can do some panels. This is my third stream, so I believe we'll unlock some of those features. I appreciate those likes. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate that. You're brave. Thank you. What? How am I brave? I don't know what you mean. Can you? I'm trying to wrap up, but you said I'm brave. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, all we're doing is speaking up in the face of a lot of opposition, a lot of war crimes, a lot of hatred, a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to have more conversations and more discussions. I think that's better than me just making YouTube videos and just shouting into the void. Like, I think it's better to have discussions with you all and figure out what people think and what the news is and what people's interpretation of things are and what do we believe the solutions are, because the answer isn't just to sit at home and watch the news or to just tweet blindly into the ethos, right? Like we have to somehow bring about a change in specifically the Democratic Party. If you want things to change, you got to do something. You got to run for office. You got to speak to your politicians. You got to give them a phone call. You got to show up at the town halls. But I mean, the news today is that Republicans are going to pull back on the town halls because they're not happy that they're being shouted at. But that's your job. Whether you're doing your job or not, you got to face the critiques. You got to come home and listen to the people that you supposedly represent. But they're some people are only loyal to the almighty dollar. So there you go. So once again, I appreciate you all. Don't forget to check out the videos that I dropped today on TikTok. I do believe that one of them was about the water, kind of a deep dive on the water and sanitation infrastructure, and of course Trump pushing in the chair for his boyfriend Benjamin Netanyahu. We do know that Elon's the first lady, or maybe he's the real president, and Trump's his first lady. I really don't know. I don't know how we're going to classify this whole weird hierarchy that's taking place, but also Netanyahu seems to own Trump, so and all the Republicans and Democrats. So where does he go in the hierarchy of what we're doing here? So check that out. Check out the YouTube. If you click the link in my bio, which is YouTube, it'll take you there, and you'll see links to my Twitter, my Blue Sky, my Substack, where I'm posting all my videos, because sometimes TikTok and YouTube and different sites tend to censor some of the content, especially TikTok. I'm not allowed to cover certain things, and if I have certain words in the titles of my videos or the descriptions, then they get, not shown to the For You page, or even shown to hardly anyone at all, and sometimes they get struck down altogether. So covering these topics, it's more difficult than I imagined it would be. I didn't expect so much opposition in terms of just all content relating to Gaza and the West Bank being censored. So I appreciate that. If you can check out those links, you can find me at Shack Politics on Twitter, Aaron Shack Politics on Blue Sky, of course, Aaron Shack Politics on YouTube, and of course, I believe the Substack is aaronshackpolitics.substack.com, and I've been posting these TikToks, and that's TikToks as in speaking. I've been posting those as well on the Substack and on YouTube. So once again, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. We'll talk soon because hopefully I will have the panel feature unlocked, and I want to use it as a way to have discussions and share information and talk about the issues of the day and what matters to us, and get more opinions on the ground of what's happening. And we'll go from there. And debates maybe, but I want to focus on spreading the message and sculpting the party and its people into what we think is best for America. So thank you all for being here. Take care. Be safe. Have a good day, and we'll talk soon.